Please see me or anybody who's on the committee. This was initially Lindsay Jean's idea, and Hospitality's gotten involved and the broader religious education committee. So we're going to have Ashley light our chalice, and while we're doing that, maybe we can take a moment to think about someone. It might be yourself, someone you know, a group of people you don't know, but someone that you think might need light in the world, some place that you would like to send thoughts of peace and thoughts of light. Thank you.
A reading, a Zen parable. A big, tough samurai once went to see a little monk. "Monk!" he barked in a voice accustomed to instant obedience. "Teach me about heaven and hell." The monk looked up at the mighty warrior and replied with utter disdain. "Teach you about heaven and hell? I couldn't teach you about anything. You're dumb, you're dirty, you're a disgrace, an embarrassment to the samurai class. Get out of my sight, I can't stand you." The samurai got furious. He shook, red in the face, speechless with rage. He pulled out his sword and prepared to slay the monk. Looking straight into the samurai's eyes, the monk said softly, "That's hell." The samurai froze, realizing the compassion of the monk who had risked his life to show him hell. He put down his sword and fell to his knees, filled with gratitude. The monk said softly, "And that's heaven." It's lovely to be here with you all. Can you hear me? Am I actually mic'd? I'm not even sure.
No, I don't think so.
On. Am I on now? Yes, now I'm mic'd. Hi, everyone. I am delighted to be here to help you kick off the Eat, Gather, Learn program. And I'm not currently a UU, but I'm a long-time UU, so I love UUs. Because UUs are such wonderful people. They're open-minded, they're loving, they're compassionate, they're fabulous people. And I was at All Souls in New York City, for any of you know All Souls on the Upper East Side when Forest Church was there. This is back in the late 80s into the late 90s. And then I was active in South Church for a while in Portsmouth. So my heart is very much with the UU community. So it's a privilege to be here with you all. So I'm going to share with you ideas about inner peace. And first, just to give you a sense of who I am, as she mentioned, I'm author of 7 books, which I still sort of surprises me. I saw those books up there, I'm like, wow, who wrote all those books? Oh wait, I did. So it's been a journey of 20 years. Transcending Loss was my first book, and it came out in 1997. I still can't believe 20 years ago. And I never really intended to be an author. It's just one of those things that the universe pulls you into, and then I said yes, and I keep saying yes when I get the pull. But I'm a psychotherapist. I have a practice in Epping. I've lived in New Hampshire for 20 years. I have 3 biological children and 2 stepchildren. 4 of them have launched, and 1 is in high school. He's the last one. We're a few years away from that final launch, but my husband's also a psychotherapist, and he has a practice in Epping as well. So you would think we're very well adjusted. All that therapy in the house. Oh. So anyway, the reading I chose is because heaven and hell, there's such a thin line between them, really. What happened for that samurai, no circumstances changed, but his experience of being activated and reactive and triggered went to calm. So I'm going to teach you some inner peace practices today, but I want to leave you with 2 sort of main themes that I'll kind of be weaving throughout the talk, and that is, number 1, that inner peace is beyond circumstances. So often we think, once I'm XYZ, whatever it is, once I'm rich enough, once I'm retired, once my kids are launched, once my soulmate comes into my life, once I lose weight, once my bank account has a certain number, then I'll be happy, then I can rest, then I can be at peace. No. If you have that philosophy, there's always going to be a then and there's never going to be a now. Now, that's not to say that good circumstances aren't lovely, because favorable circumstances are quite lovely. So we do want to have all those things that make life easier. However, you don't need those things in order to be at peace. All you need is right now, this single moment, regardless of the circumstances, that the difference between heaven and hell is actually within you, and it has to do with your own perspective and your own approach and your own attitude, and how you accept what is, as opposed to resisting what is, which almost always involves suffering. So in the spirit of that, I'm going to be teaching you some practices that can help you achieve that right now. That there's an inner anchor, if you will, that can go down into the depths of the water, and that is your entry point into inner peace, not having every circumstance be just so. The other point I want to make and share with you is that in general, we have the time to do this, even though you think you don't. Most people say, I don't have time for whatever it is that might be good for them. I don't have time to exercise, I don't have time to meditate, I don't have time to go to a yoga class, I don't have time to come here, although you did. You guys are awesome. You made time for this. Some people will say, I don't have time to go to church, I don't have time to go to that talk. You guys made time for this, so that already tells me that you all are very far along this path because you made time for yourselves. So it's true that having lots of free time is a wonderful asset, but again, many people we're so busy, we're so stressed. I don't know, is anyone in this room busy? Has anyone experienced busyness? Has anyone experienced having more things to do than time to do it? Mm-hmm. Has anyone experienced stress at work with a colleague or a client of some kind? Yes, everyone's nodding. Has anyone ever had stress with their children? Or their spouse? Yes, so basically this is a very universal experience. We all experience stress. And it takes us away from appreciating the magic of our lives, because really the magic is there, we just lose track of it and we can't see it, and we get, the stress is like putting on sunglasses all the time. You're always wearing these tinted lenses and you can't see that if you would just take off those tinted lenses, there's a whole magical world. So, going back to my second point, which I'm not sure I've actually clearly made, so I'm going to clearly make it for you. The first point is that inner peace is within and that you have the power to get there regardless of your circumstances. But the second point is that you have time. Why? Because the practices I'm going to teach you are very short. I'm a big believer in what I call micro self-care. So, what does that mean? It means taking macro things and shrinking them into micro moments. I'm a believer in less is more and the law of little things. So, this happens to actually be corroborated by the science of neuroplasticity, which is that change occurs with repetitive behaviors, small repetitive behaviors, over and over and over and over, and that's how change occurs. It's kind of like learning a new language. You have to repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat certain words, and then you finally, your brain finally like grabs onto it. So I believe in repetition of small things, 60-second things, 30-second things. Less is more, and it makes an impact. So the things I'm gonna, if I sat up here and said, your path to inner peace is 50 minutes a day of meditation, you guys would all leave and be like, oh God, I'll never do that. Or your path to inner peace is exercising for an hour and a half, 5 times a week. Okay, you guys would be like, whatever, that's not gonna happen. So I believe in giving people tools that are actually doable, and therefore they're all very short. So micro self-care is doable, it's easy, you can weave it into your day. My book, Shortcuts to Inner Peace, is all about things you can do like while you're waiting in a line, while you're sitting at a red light, while you're washing your hands in the bathroom. Because I also believe, why not do something while you're already doing something? Take advantage of the situation. The ones I'm going to tell you about today aren't necessarily ones that you would do while you're doing something else, but they're all short. They're all doable. And I submit to you that if you practice them regularly, you will start to feel more peaceful. You will dip into that well within you. You will find your inner compass, even if the circumstances in your life are just a wreck. I hope they're not, for your sake, but this will help. Okay, so let's get into a few of the practices. The first one is so easy you won't even believe it does anything, but it does. So I call this serenity symbols. We're going to do all of them, by the way. So serenity symbols is saying the words sa, ta, na, ma. And you're doing this, mimicking what I'm doing here. We're all going to do it in a minute, but sa, ta, na, ma. There's something about this is actually an ancient yogic practice that recalibrates the nervous system. You're also doing a bilateral stimulation piece. I'm all about bilateral stim because I practice EMDR. For any of you who know what EMDR is, it's a kind of therapy where your eyes move right, left. You're actually following my finger, or I have these light sensors. People are following right, left, not moving the head. Anyway, the point is that bilateral stimulation in the brain is just amazing. I'm going to do more of Satanama, but even doing something like this, holding the back of your head and getting both sides of your brain tapped, that's very calming too. So anything you can do right, left, tapping on your body in alternate patterns, that will always de-escalate your nervous system. But back to Satanama. So what you do, and most of these practices I teach, you don't need to get too crazy about the particulars, but there is sort of a correct way, but they're all kind of correct. But anyway, what you do, you say it out loud 3 times, then you whisper it 3 times, and then you do it 3 times silently in your head. Okay, so first, can everyone do this hand motion? You're just going back and forth to your thumb. Each finger's going to your thumb. So let's try this, okay? We're going to go sa, ta, na, ma. Sa, ta, na, ma. Sa, ta, na, ma. Now whisper sa, ta, na, ma. Now in your head. That's it. That's the practice. It's so easy. You can't tell me that you don't have time to do that. I teach that to people, and there's something, it helps you calm down if you're upset. I have used it in that way. I once, I think I actually write about this in one of my books. It was after my golden retriever had died, 15 years old, you know, family dog, love of my life, such a wonderful, fabulous. If any of you know golden retrievers, Hickory was his name. And he had died, and it was like within the week, and I kept spontaneously crying because I was grieving. But it's sort of inconvenient to be crying when your clients are coming to cry to me, and they don't really want to see me crying. So I would, before any client, I would just start doing Satanama, and it would calm me down and allow me to regulate my own emotional nervous system. So that is a great one for when you're feeling upset, but it's a great one just as a baseline, just in the morning. Do it before breakfast. Do it after dinner. It's helpful for people, I think, to have habits. My couples book is about 75 habits. You don't really need to do all 75 all at once, but there's something about knowing, sort of like when you brush your teeth at a certain time, or if your juice is there, you're going to take a vitamin with it. If we can have connected prompts, like I'm always going to do this right after I brush my teeth, or I'm always going to do this right after I get out of the shower, it just helps to have habits so you don't have to think about it too hard. You just know you're going to do that. So Satanama is one to just plug it right into your toolbox right now. There are actually Sanskrit syllables that mean, roughly, birth, death, I think destruction, regeneration. So there's a sense of birth, death, of sort of a flow, destruction, regeneration. So it's, you know, it's not that important in terms of what the Sanskrit syllables refer to, but if you want to think of it that way too, that can add to it. You don't have to, but it's that sense of flow. There's life, there's death, there's building up, there's building down. Just kind of an acceptance of the flow of life. So there's something about that that just penetrates into the system that helps you feel balanced. Okay, you think you can do that? All right, the next one I want to share with you is one of my favorites. Of course, I do say that about all of them, just like, you know, you don't tell your children if you have a favorite. They're all your favorites, so these are all my favorites. This is the 4-7-8 breath. Does anyone here already practice that or know about it? So this is a really useful tool. And so simple, you just can't even believe it. But you inhale for the count of 4, you hold for the count of 7, and you exhale for the count of 8. And while you are exhaling, you blow out like you're blowing through a straw. So you purse your lips a little bit. There's something, this is also 2,000 years old. It's an ancient yogic breath. So I really like the ancient yogic tradition. They just have fantastic stuff. The 4-7-8 breath, this one does matter. You can't suddenly just do 3, 10, 1. I mean, there is something specific. I try to remind people, because some people will be like, was that 4, 8, 2? You know, I just say you've got to memorize it, but it is in chronological order. 4, 7, 8. It is chronological, so you're not going to do 4, 10, 5. And I'll just start, I could really get you guys confused right now when you're trying to learn. And it's 13, 2, 1. Basically, there's a pattern of having the exhale twice as long as the inhale, that matters. And that's doing something to stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system is basically the brakes. So in our world, we have accelerators, we have brakes. Sometimes we need accelerators, like coffee in the morning, but we certainly need to have our brakes because life is full of accelerators. So the 4-7-8 can really help you just drop down into a calm place and be slowing down. I really recommend it in the evening for people, and especially before bedtime, it's a great time to do 4-7-8 breath. So we're going to do it, and for anyone who's just really interested in this and wants to learn more about it, Dr. Andrew Weil, that's W-E-I-L, has a really nice YouTube video, totally free on YouTube, as an instructional about the 4-7-8 breath. And in fact, he spends about 5 minutes describing why it's the best thing since sliced bread, that you just want to immediately do it. He's like, you'll never have anxiety again, you'll never have insomnia again, you'll never have, whatever. You're like, come on, 4-7-8. But he does say that if you do it every morning and every night as a cumulative practice, that after doing it for 30 days, you're just going to have totally rewired yourself. You will not be as anxious. You will not be as prone to anxiety. So there is something to that it's powerful on occasion, but it's even more powerful with regularity. So what you do 3 rounds. So we're going to do it together. Make sure everyone gets it. I will be the counter. But the idea is you're doing 4-7-8, 4-7-8, 4-7-8. And that's all. And it takes about 60 seconds. You can do it while you're sitting on the toilet if you have to. All right, we are going to try it now. So just get yourself in a relaxed position and start your exhale, and I'm going to count. Inhaling 1, 3, 4, hold 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhaling through the mouth. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale 8. 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How do you feel? Okay? Children are screaming, but that's all right. When children are screaming, you especially need to do the 4-7-8 breath. No, that really, I have to say, as a practice, I probably picked the 4-7-8 breath before Satan Nama if you had to do one. Like, that's just a tried and true. I do it in the car, but I want to be cautious about advising you to do things in cars if it compromises your driving at all. Do it at a red light. But I find I can do the counting while I hold the steering wheel. So if you can do it safely, check it out. If not, forget it and do it at home. Okay. The third one I want to share with you is the idea of self-compassion. So there's a wonderful researcher, Kristen Neff, N-E-F-F, and she has a wonderful website that's got tons of information about the power of self-compassion, why it's actually more of a motivator than being mean to yourself. So people usually think, oh, I gotta be really mean to myself so I can motivate myself. Like, you jerk, you lazy slug, get off the couch and go exercise. It doesn't actually usually work. And one of the reasons why she makes an interesting point, that in general, we react to attack with negativity and with resistance and with that we can't help it. We're kind of wired that way. It's part of the survival of our species. If we're attacked, we're going to have attack energy back. In general, I mean, there's also the freeze response, but let's not get too into this. Just that in general, we don't receive attack very well. So if you're attacking yourself with mean, semi-motivational not niceness, you feel attacked. You don't feel inclined to do it. We respond to gentle persuasion and also kindness to ourselves, and in particular, understanding. And compassion is about understanding. It's okay, honey, I know you don't want to get up off the couch. It's so nice to sit here. But really, if you want to do something healthy for yourself, you're going to go do this. It has a nicer tone. It's like catching more flies with honey than vinegar. It's just a nicer way. So anyway, her point is that because a lot of people think if I'm too self-compassionate, I'll just be a wuss or something, like I'll just never do anything. But in fact, self-compassion is linked to higher degrees of motivation. And it's also just really nice. And so I'm going to teach you a self-compassion practice that is designed actually by Kristen Neff. And first, I've lived in New Hampshire for 20 years, complained about the winter for almost 20 years, and now I'm sweating. So I'm not used to sweating, but what can you do? So I apologize for my glistening glow. September's a funny month. It's hot, it's cold, whatever. I will accept it. I will satanama it. So self-compassion has these 3 components. And I want to add this because I have learned this recently, and I hadn't heard this before, even though I've kind of instinctively done it. But people are more responsive if you talk to yourself in the second person. So this is interesting. So that if I was offering self-compassion to myself, it's better to say, "You'll be okay, honey. You've got this. You're okay." That's going to be more helpful to me psychologically, neurologically, than saying, "I've got this, I'm good, I'm okay, I'm all set." And the reason is that when you use the second person, it taps into our brain's natural ability to think of ourselves as connected beings as opposed to isolated people, because we need other beings, we need communities, we need social interaction, we need attachment. So if you talk to yourself in the second person, it kind of implies that there's an other there as well to support you, so that there's a thing talking and then there's a you. Whereas if you just say I, you're not connected to anything else, you're just I. No man is an island, or woman. So stay away from I, because a lot of people will do, affirmations have been popular through the years, like, I am energetic, I am confident. Those kinds of affirmations, if you've been using them, just switch it to you. You are energetic. You are confident. You have your back. That kind of thing. So we'll tie that into the self-compassion piece. The 3 phases of a self-compassion practice are, first you notice the suffering, and I'll give you an example. Second, you universalize it, and that means reminding yourself that you are not alone, you're not the only one who has felt this. And third, you give yourself loving kindness messages in the second person. So an example would be, let's say you had a young child and it was a difficult day and they had thrown a temper tantrum and you were at your wit's end and you just wanted to, where's the return label for this child? You're kind of strung out. So first you notice the suffering and you say, "Oh, it's so hard to deal with this screaming child, and I've been doing it all day, and this is just plain hard, and I feel like I'm losing my patience, and I'm at my wit's end." So you notice and name your suffering. Then you universalize it, and you say, "I am not the first parent on this planet to feel annoyed by my screaming child. I'm not the first person who wanted to just go, Calgon, take me away. I am not the first person who felt like they couldn't cope with this." So you remind yourself that you are one among all people all through human history, all of time. And then the last piece is that you give yourself loving kindness. Now that one's kind of the hardest for people, so I say, you just got to fake it till you make it if you have to. But say things like, "You're going to be okay. You can go take a 5-minute break and put the baby in a crib or call a friend to come over. You're going to get through this. All is well. This child is going to grow up. This too shall pass. You're a good person. You're going to be okay." That kind of talk. So going through your day like this, things really start to shift. Notice your suffering, remind yourself you're not alone, and tell yourself something nice. It can be done very quickly. The whole thing can be 10 seconds, really. Is that a question or just a, oh, okay, good.
So should that identifying of it, should that also be done in the second? So you went back to the first?
Yes, that's a good question. I think that one you can notice in the first person or the second person. I suppose it depends on how you're feeling. But I think most people, when they're in the moment of feeling something, they're like, ah, I'm so impatient, or ah, I can't stand this. So it's probably more natural to notice your suffering in the I. And of course, that's what the I is, because the I feels alone and feels out of it. So that's a really good clarification, though. But I would say, if you're noticing your suffering in the I, go with that. But when you say something nice to yourself, switch it to you. Yeah. Are there other questions while we have that little pause? Thank you for asking that. There will be a chance for more questions at the end. So that is sort of a practice that often you'll forget to do. So I suggest writing it down or putting it on a Post-it so that the second you start noticing even an irritation, oh, I'm so irritated. Oh, I'm not the first person to be irritated by my spouse, mother, child, coworker. People through all of human history have been irritated by their spouse, child, mother, coworker. And then say something nice like, it's okay, you're a good person, you're going to get through this, you have the weekend ahead, all is well, this too shall pass. And just say some nice things to yourself. The other thing that Kristen Neff also likes to add, so I'm going to put this in. Some people love this, some people don't. But there is research that it helps intensify the self-compassion reception. And that is, you embody it with a gesture. So you bring it to the body with a gesture. And she's done research on which gestures are best. She claims that this is one of the best ones, where you cradle your face. So you might want to just try that right now. Just cradle your face and breathe it. That there's something kind of gentle about that. Another one is to put one or both hands kind of in the center of your chest or a little bit over your heart. She says that this right here, just doing this, will actually initiate the release of oxytocin in your body. So kind of breathe that in. The other gesture she has done research on is a hand on the heart or the chest and a hand on the belly. That there's something about these pressure points right over the chakras, and that it's the same place that if you were holding an infant, they would be right there on your body. And if you were the infant, you would feel pressure along your whole body. So I've also had women, though, tell me they don't want to put their hands on their stomachs, which is interesting, right? They're like, ew, I don't want to feel my belly. So then that would be another session with me, and we'll talk about self-love of the body. Okay, another one, because all of those are fairly noticeable. So if you were in a meeting and you felt like, I just need to be discreet here. If I do this in front of all my colleagues, they're going to think, what is she doing? So you can just kind of even just hold yourself like this. This would just be, you're kind of giving yourself a hug, or you could be holding your own hand. And that you would know that was a gesture of self-compassion, even though no one else would. So I invite you to kind of experiment with that, to think about which gesture might feel nice, which gesture is sort of most soothing to you, because the whole idea is, as you're being self-compassionate, you want to be soothing yourself. And so often, this has to do with also reparenting yourself. For people that have been involved in any kind of therapeutic work where you're looking at your childhood and maybe what you didn't get and the ways you were wounded, and we were all wounded in different ways, and didn't have maybe the parent we wished for or should have had, wanted to. Even if they were great, they might have just forgotten you at school one day, that's all it takes, or they could have been really downright abusive. But anyway, the whole self-compassion aspect has a quality of kind of reparenting yourself, of soothing yourself, of offering yourself what you perhaps didn't receive as a child. So it's a really, really powerful practice, and can have really a profound sense of shifting how you treat yourself, how you talk to yourself, self-talk. A lot of us have very easy, negative, judgmental self-talk. Erase it. Change it to self-compassion talk, and this will help you do it. Any questions about that particular practice? Any other questions? That's really, love that practice. Okay, I'm going to do one more, and then we will have more questions and kind of wrap up. So this one is a physical one. I'm going to ask you all to stand up. This one's called Heaven and Earth, joining heaven and earth. So first you put your hands together and you shake them, and then shake off the energy. Good. And then you're going to put one hand up to the sky, kind of flat like that, and the other one down flat like that. And you're going to look up, and then you're going to look down. You're going to go look up, and then you're going to come to a prayer position in the front. You're going to do the other side. You're going to do the up and the down. And you look up, and you look down, and you look up, and then you come right here back to prayer pose. Now, if you're feeling that you want to add symbolism, you can think of it as calling in divine assistance to life on earth, or you can just think of it as air and earth, however you want to imagine it, but just the stretch alone, and you can kind of play with it if you really want to give your body as much of a stretch as you can. The idea is that stretching is good for your body, and it's a kind of peace practice because your body needs to move. And we often don't move it, but this is a way of just kind of coming back to your center. You can sit down. And then after you do that, you might want to do a 4-7-8 breath or something. Just get it all going. I will say that I do that one a lot in the afternoon to kind of give myself a little energy. It kind of has a way of energizing you. And the other thing that I do that I just add is tapping. Tapping on your cheeks will help to energize you. Tapping on your under your collarbone and then right on your sternum. That all has a way of kind of waking up the body, and then sometimes I'll add the head just very gently. So you may not have time for a long meditation, but you can do these short meditations. You may not have time for a yoga class, but you can do a stretch. You may not have time for a long exercise, but you could even, if you wanted to, do 10 jumping jacks. Now, I don't, and I'm not going to demonstrate for that. But the point, again, is microtizing, taking things that you know are good for you and shrinking them down. If you love to read, but you don't have time to read a novel right now, maybe you could read a poem, a Mary Oliver poem or something. The idea is that less is more. What can you do in 60 seconds? What can you do in 10 seconds? And build it into your life, because just because you're saying there's no time, I challenge you, you can always find 60 seconds. So, yeah. Are you all prepared to use these peace practices and have more of heaven in your life instead of hell? Yeah. Good. Well, tell me if you have any thoughts about this, any reactions, any questions, any comments. Are you stressed? Are you already at peace? Yes?
So Lisa and I went to hear Ashley at Water Street Bookstore a couple months ago around the release of your newest book.
This one?
Yeah. And one of the practices that we found really helpful in there was about wishing peace to people outside of you that you were frustrated or disgruntled with. We have found that tremendously useful in this particular time in our country's lives, and we use it often.
Not naming names that begin with a T.
We use it also often when we're driving, and other cars, coming in, or people aren't letting us merge in, and we do a quick "I wish you well" or "I wish you peace" to another driver in a way that makes
That's
us feel
great.
better.
Good. Well, thank you for sharing that, Dawn, because of course it's so easy to get really stressed out when you're driving. Road rage, or less. It doesn't have to be rage, just like really getting annoyed with people that cut you off. And so I'm glad you're using that. And one way I sometimes will try to think of it, because I do that also, especially when I'm driving or at red lights. Even if I'm not irritated with people, I'll sometimes just at a red light, I'll look over and say, well, wish you peace. I don't think they know I'm talking to them, because I'm not like, hey, you. But I also will think to myself, that person has joys and sorrows just like I do. That person has strengths and weaknesses just like I do. That person is fighting fights that I can't even imagine. And then I think to myself, I try to sort of pretend like I'm imagining, I wonder where they put their head at night. And then I just, because we all sleep, right? That's like such a common denominator. And I'll just kind of question it. I wonder where they put their head at night. Are they alone? Are they sleeping with someone next to them? Do they like the person they're sleeping next to? That it kind of just brings them to that vulnerable spot. That's a person who, like me, is going to put their head on a pillow at night, and it makes them more real and more vulnerable. So if you're having trouble, like, that jerk, just try to think of them as they're as human as you are, and they're putting their head somewhere at night. But the point, and I'm glad you brought that up, is that you're not just sort of spreading fairy dust, although probably you're doing that too, but it makes you feel better because A, you're not getting all worked up and mad and frustrated on the road, which is essentially an inner poison, and you're opening your heart. And whenever we open our heart, we're raising our vibrations, and so we feel better. So it's just a classic win-win, that you feel better and they're getting good energy and all is well. Any other thoughts? Yes, ma'am.
So I work with kids in public school, and they're all pretty anxious. And so we do motor breaks and brain breaks throughout the day. But it doesn't work with a lot of kids. So I just wondered how if you've done any of these in particular that worked with kids.
That's a good question.
Because some work and some don't. And,
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
touching here and here is the same as the brain gym. They have that in their program, which is one of those programs.
Well, you'll have to talk to Dawn afterwards because she works with children.
I know you do. I know.
But I will tell you that the butterfly hug, which we can do, you put your hands kind of like this. You can link your thumbs and then put them here, and then tap right, left. So remember the tapping? I told you how powerful tapping on your body can be. And you can either keep your thumbs linked, or at that point you can open them if that's not comfortable. But this particular practice, and I'll just keep doing it, it's good for you, which is called the butterfly hug, and is in that book, was created with children. And it was an EMDR person in Mexico working with children after not a hurricane, an earthquake. And so it was actually created for children. And so you might want to try that because it does start to downregulate. Well, I think it's that time then. I will be around afterwards for questions if anyone wants that, or to sign a book, whatever you might want to chat about. We're going to close with a meditation and then a little bit of music. And so this is it's a short meditation, and it's called ABC because that's easy to remember. That's how I named it. And I'm actually going to read parts of it to you. So what I'm going to invite you to do right now is to get centered and to close your eyes if you're comfortable doing that. Just taking a moment to settle, to allow your body to be fully present and your mind to be right here, right now, taking in this time and place and space. This is the ABC meditation. It's about 3 minutes. So, for the first minute, we're going to do A. A is for aware, being aware. So right now I want you to be aware of your environment, the sounds around you. If you can hear the crickets, you can feel yourself breathing, sounds of children, the texture of the bench underneath you. See if you can be aware of air on your skin. Notice if you're aware of any sensations of tension in your body. if you're aware of the temperature. Notice if you're aware of any smells, any lingering taste in your mouth, delicious food. Just let yourself be aware. The sounds of a car, maybe sound or air or sensation can be your anchor of awareness. Next is B, and that's for breathing. So I want you to turn your attention to your breath. Let everything else go. And just notice your in-breath and your out-breath. And if a thought comes into your mind, just let it pass across the sky of your mind like a cloud. Notice the breath at the nostrils, how the air feels. Does it feel different going in or out? Notice if your breath starts to slow. Notice if your breath is low in your belly. If it fills your rib cage. Notice if your chest rises or not as you breathe. Breathing in, you are calm. Breathing out, you relax. Breath is the spirit of life. Breathing in, you are calm. Breathing out, you relax. And then you go to C, which is your core, the center of you. Pull your navel back to the base of your spine, getting into your center as if you are a core. There's a core within you like the core of an apple. Imagine a column of light that runs through that core, your vertical axis, extending up through the crown of your head and down through your body. Let yourself feel anchored at your center, the core of you. Just notice if there seems to be a color at your core or a texture at your core, a sensation at your core. And just let yourself feel the energy at your core. A, B, C, aware, breath, core. And then start to re-enter the room, noticing that you're back here, feeling your fingers, wiggling your toes. And I invite you to listen to the music, either with your eyes open or closed as you wish, and let yourself connect to the peace that is within you.
just end with some thanks, to thank you all for coming tonight. We certainly thank Ashley for helping us to keep this on. Thank you to Lisa for lovely playing. To Water Street Bookstore for bringing books. And I really encourage you all to stop and take a look at the books. They're really remarkable. Ashley has a wonderful, very readable voice in her writing, and the books are filled not only with these brief practices, but also with anecdotes and stories. Lisa and I read one of these on a long car trip, and it was hard to do the meditations. I was the driver, Lisa was the reader, but we just laughed at the stories and anecdotes, and were really moved by some of the pieces of history that she gave within the books, and they're really just remarkable books. I would encourage you to take a look. And please talk up these Gather, Eat, Learn nights tomorrow at FUUSE and among people that you see. We're hoping to have this become a really strong program. So thank you again for coming tonight.
Thanks to Dawn.
Thank you, Dawn.